Today we are looking at a massive diplomatic storm brewing over Nigeria. The United States has announced fresh visa restriction on Nigerians accused of undermining religious freedom, specifically targeting anti-Christian violence. But it gets deeper. US lawmakers are now actively pushing for the abolition of Sharia law in northern Nigeria. Then back home, the pressure is real. Senate President Godswill Akpabio admitted during a security screening that Donald Trump is on our neck. It is a clash of sovereignty, religion, and national security. So sit back and take a watch.
Well, all right. Well, good morning to you, viewers. Let's begin what's trending in the United States, where the government has announced new visa restrictions targeting Nigerians accused of undermining religious freedom following escalating violence and what Washington describes as targeted persecution of Christians in Nigeria. In a post on X, U.S. Secretary of State Marco Rubio said the restriction will affect those who knowingly direct, authorize, fund, support, and carry out violations of religious freedom. And I'll read Marco Rubio's post on X. He wrote, "The United States is taking decisive action in response to the atrocities and violence against Nigerians, against Christians in Nigeria and around the world. The State Department will restrict U.S. visas for those who knowingly direct, authorize, fund, support, or carry out violations of religious freedom. This visa policy applies to Nigeria and other governments or individuals that persecute people for their religious beliefs." Well, Marco Rubio spoke with Fox News on Monday, issuing a stark warning about the threat posed by radical Islam, describing it as a clear and imminent danger to the world and broader West, and especially the United States. Let's take a look.
Radical Islam has shown that their desire is not simply to occupy one part of the world and be happy with their own little caliphate. They want to expand. It's revolutionary in its nature. It seeks to expand and control more territories and more people. And radical Islam has designs openly on the West. On the United States, on Europe, we've seen that progress there as well. And they are prepared to conduct acts of terrorism. In the case of Iran, nation-state actions, assassinations, murders, you name it, whatever it takes for them to gain their influence and ultimately their domination of different cultures and societies. That's a clear and imminent threat to the world and to the broader West, but especially to the United States, who they identify as the chief source of evil on the planet. Okay, the reason why they hate the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, the leadership of the UAE, of Bahrain, is because they've allowed the United States to partner with them. That's why they hate them. They consider them infidels for it. They hate Israel. But they also hate America. And they hate anywhere in the world that we have influence. They seek to attack it, including here in the homeland.
Well, this is a clear signal that the Trump administration is taking a hardline approach to radical Islamic terrorism, marking a significant shift in U.S. foreign policy rhetoric. Well, the visa ban announcement comes a day after U.S. lawmakers convened a roundtable in Washington with religious freedom and foreign relations experts to discuss Nigeria's escalating violence on President Donald Trump's directive. Last month, House Foreign Affairs Africa Subcommittee Chairman Chris Smith introduced a resolution recommending the visa ban and asset freezes on individuals and entities responsible for severe violations of religious freedom in Nigeria, especially naming the Maeti Allah Cattle Breeders Association of Nigeria and Maeti Allah Cattle Hore as erring entities. Well, MACBAN has since denied allegations of carrying out Christian genocide against Christians and urged Congress to withdraw the recommendation. Well, this visa ban announcement is a significant escalation in U.S.-Nigeria relations and represents Washington's most direct intervention yet in Nigeria's security crisis. Dr. Abati, I'd like your comments, but, you know, we've often talked about these sanctions, and now we are seeing a clear sanction right now on targeting individuals and entities that support and negotiate with terrorists as well. But also the mention of Maeti Allah in this whole conversation also is very important for you to discuss as well. So I'll tie in this story for us to discuss both. Meanwhile, The United States lawmakers have been urged to pressure the Nigerian government to abolish Sharia law in northern states where it has been adopted and disband the religious enforcement HISPA commissions, with experts warning that these laws and groups are fueling systematic anti-Christian persecution. Well, during the joint House briefing on Tuesday, Council on Foreign Relations Senior Fellow Dr. Ebenezer Obadari testified that the primary drivers of violence, Boko Haram, ISWAP, and radicalized Fulani militants exploit Sharia frameworks and HISPA officials to impose extremist ideology and operate with near total impunity. Dr. Obadari laid out a twofold strategy. First, work with the Nigerian military to neutralize Boko Haram, and second, pressure President Tinubu to make Sharia law unconstitutional in 12 northern states where it has been adopted since the year 2000 and disband the various Hizbah groups who are seeking to enforce Islamic law on all citizens regardless of their religious identity. This is another push that we are seeing, Dr. Abati. You know, the call for the ban of Sharia law also is an uncomfortable conversation that needs to be had. Your thoughts?
Okay, since President Trump named Nigeria as a country of particular concern, redesignation after the Biden administration, there have been a lot of moves in the United States in terms of addressing the issue in Nigeria. Well, let's start with what we call radical Islam. Now, radical Islam, yes, it's a very serious threat, to the United States. We all remember 9/11, and it talks about basically extremist ideology that you can find either in terms of fundamentalism or in terms of the use of violent tactics to promote that particular religion. And 9/11 would seem to be a very good example of the kind of, threat that radical Islam can pose. For the United States, 9/11 was a particular, wake-up call. And the international community have been mobilized since then to fight global extremism. So it's not just of concern to the U.S., it's also for the global community. Second, now the U.S. now saying, look, U.S. will fight it. Other countries are fighting it too.
Yes.
What we're talking about is the need for cooperation, to check extremism of any sort, whether it's called radical Islam or it is called terrorism or it is called banditry. Now, to come to Nigeria, the U.S. says, Nigeria is not a country of particular concern. The announcement that they will restrict visas is inside the Immigration and Nationality Act, Section 212, Sub A and Sub 3C, which gives the United States, the powers to restrict visas for certain category of persons and entities. And I had made a point earlier on that, it falls within the legitimate and sovereign right of the U.S. to admit whoever it wants to admit. It's not automatic that when you apply for visa that you'll be given. Where the problem will be is, how do you identify who these religious extremists in Nigeria are? It's not as if Nigeria has a list of persons who are known as radical extremists. So that's why it's at the discretion of the consular section of the United States Embassy, issuing visa to persons. Now, the Nigerian government too does not have a list. If there is a list, and they have published it, well, I have not seen it. And then when you look at the Middle Belt area, Benue, Plateau, Southern Kaduna in the Northwest, most of the people who are involved in these things, the basis is not religion. The basis is land. It's economic power. It's about access to resources. So it's a bit complex in Nigeria. The other thing you raised is the Sharia.
Yes.
Now it was Dr. Ebenezer Obadari, he used to be one of our colleagues in those early days, who recommended that two solutions to address the problem in Nigeria. Put pressure on the Nigerian government to do a lot more. Then ban Sharia in 12 northern states and also ban the Hizbah units.
Yes.
Well, the thing to note is that the Sharia law is in fact in the Constitution of Nigeria. I think I said this about 2 days ago. In sections 275, 279. And its jurisdiction is civil. It's not a criminal orthodoxy, as some people are trying to define it in the United States. It means that the Sharia law can only apply to persons who have elected to be tried under the Sharia law. And we have Sharia Court of Appeal. We have in some of these states, where you have the Sharia. And in any case, it's a federal system.
Yeah.
Some states, that say, oh, we want to adopt this kind of system of law are allowed to do so. But that law should not apply to people who do not subscribe to it. So you cannot use Sharia law now to punish Christians.
Yes, and so
I do not think that President Tinubu has the powers to unilaterally say, oh, he will declare Sharia law unconstitutional. In fact, that would be a prescription for chaos,
all right,
for conflict.
All right.
In fact, it will worsen the situation because persons from those 12 northern states and, religious leaders who since 1978 Constitutional Conference insisted on the Sharia being accommodated as a personal orthodoxy.
Right.
They will be the ones to now rise up in arms. So in trying to solve a problem in Nigeria, you create another problem.
All right. We have often seen, like you have said, that the Sharia law should not be used to persecute Christians, right? But we have seen that happen. I think we've discussed this at length. Ayo,
yes.
even recently we've seen...
Now it's inching closer.
Yes.
And the truth is that we need to also decide whether or not Nigeria is a secular state or not.
Correct.
If we say that Nigeria is a secular state, then we cannot have sports whereby a particular religious law is allowed. So we need to make that decision. And I did mention at the beginning of this conversation around Christian genocide that we must have uncomfortable conversations around Sharia law in some states. I also believe that it's important to find out to what extent the Christians living in those... we've seen incidents where it crosses over.
We have
it always
most
crosses over after a while. And that's where the challenge is. If something was instituted or called upon, if we see that it has a negative effect, we can go back to the conversation, revisit it, and actually find out if it's still working.
Except that Sharia is not a religion.
No, I'm talking about a particular religious group.
The Sharia court.
The Constitution says there shall be no state religion.
Correct.
In any part. And there's no state of Nigeria where they say you must only be Muslims or you must only be Christians.
Yeah, but the point she's making
is a system of judicial administration
that applies to only a particular religious group.
Or whoever submits to it.
Yes. But it's mainly the religious group.
So let me tell you why she's talking about why we're talking about this, because only recently I think we saw a man's store that was closed down in Abuja and said it was a Sharia court that repossessed his property, and we have seen some of these.
There's no Sharia in the EFCT.
Well, that was the conversation
in the state where it was brought before.
It was brought before,
and so they are inches.
So it was in the state it was brought before.
Closer,
so exactly, because the people that were persecuting were, using the Sharia court to do that. And so, like Ayo has said, this is a situation where these laws are inching and also persecuting people that have not subscribed to it. For example, we saw Deborah, the killing of Deborah, who, had this, was blasphemous, and she was killed. She was burned. But she was Christian, and they used the blasphemy law to persecute her. So, these are the sort of conversations that are uncomfortable and need to be had. If we have to revisit the conversation, we should open it again on the table. And this is my thought. The Constitution is being reviewed all the time, Dr. Abati, isn't it?
No, we're talking about Sharia law. I'm saying it will cause a lot of problems.
Well,
I don't think President Tinubu needs to go in that direction.
Well, that's your advice. But the Nigerian people are saying that these are the conversations that need to be had. If this is a situation where Christians are being persecuted for something that they did not subscribe to, I believe it's something that should be put on the table.
Yes.
That's really all it is.
We're going to constitutional reform conversation. So.
All right, in the meantime, the Senate has confirmed the appointment of former Chief of Defense Staff, General Christopher Musa, as Nigeria's new Minister of Defense following a rigorous 5-hour screening by lawmakers on Wednesday. During the confirmation hearing, General Musa faced tough questions on recent security lapses, including the withdrawal of troops from Government Comprehensive Girls Secondary School in Maga, Kebbi State. General Musa assured the Senate that he would immediately set up a full-scale investigation into the troop withdrawal once he assumes office and vowed to probe the recent killing of a brigadier commander in Borno State, Brigadier General Musa Uba, and other attacks targeting military officers. Well, during the screening, General Musa also declared a hardline stance against negotiating with criminals, stating that such negotiations compromise national security. Let's take a look.
No one individual can do this together. We must work. So it says no to negotiation. There is no negotiation with any criminal. And I think that should be made very, very clear. We are working together. We're going to work together with the NSS office to ensure that states don't adopt such things, because those things compromise security. And to tell those that nobody, if you negotiate with them, they will never abide by it. It's just a moment. When they do that, they want to buy time to buy more arms, and then they were going to come. And we have seen it repeatedly. There are even localities that have done that. They still come after them. So, sir, it's a total ban on that, total ban on illegal mining.
Sharia law is not.
Well, the screening session saw moments of tension when Senator representing Niger East, Sani Musa, suggested that General Christopher Musa be allowed to take a bow and go, prompting protests from lawmakers before Senate President Godswill Akpabio intervened firmly, rejecting the suggestion, stating that Nigerians deserve to hear from General Musa at the time when security concerns remain high. He cited pressure from the United States over security concerns in Nigeria, stating that even Donald Trump is on our neck. Let's take a look.
So we are not asking him questions because we don't like him. We're asking him questions because our constituents would have loved to ask him questions at a time like this. So if we come here and we do politics of bow and go, this is not a period we should say bow and go. Even Donald Trump is on our neck. We have not yet asked him what his response will be to Donald Trump, the President of America. He is not just anybody. Chief of Defense Staff, a nominee for a Minister of Defense of a country, and you stand up and say you should take a bow and go, with so many questions on the mouth of Nigerians, with over 200 Nigerian children in the bush, kidnapped and being tortured. His appointment is heralded all over Nigeria with happiness, because Nigerians believe he has something to offer. Give the man an opportunity to give Nigerians hope.
Well, this is a far departure. Well, the Senate, from the Senate's usual rubber stamp bow and go practice. Some people online say the practice was rejected because of international pressure. I'll take some posts on X before I come to you. Akan wrote, if not for Donald Trump, Akpabio would never have read the terms of his engagement as Senate President. Hope he maintains this energy for other pressing national issues. Another ex-user wrote, and hailing Akpabio, saying, distinguished sir, you have earned my respect for this singular act. The era of take a bow and go just like that as a nominee minister can no longer be accepted in this crucial time of heightening insecurity. All government appointees must be scrutinized. Finally, an ex-user wrote, politics aside, Akpabio asked some genuinely pertinent questions. It's clear that even within Nigeria's leadership circles, there is an awareness of the pressure coming from the United States and a need to respond thoughtfully. And also in the meantime, speaking about, General Musa and, the zero tolerance on negotiations with terrorists, the House of Representatives on Wednesday called on the federal government to reveal the financiers behind terrorism and banditry in Nigeria. The House resolved that the people backing kidnappings and banditry in the country should be named, sanctioned, and persecuted, while also stating that all terrorism-related persecutions should be open, expeditious and transparent. The lawmakers also demanded that the federal government open a new special court specifically dedicated to terrorism, banditry and kidnapping. These are all the right moves in the right direction. We've always called for these people to be named and shamed. Now the lawmakers are even calling for a special court for the prosecution. Now your thoughts on Akpabio even referencing Donald Trump, that hey, Donald Trump is on our neck at this point. This international pressure, the pressure is getting worse.
It's getting worse.
Go ahead.
Well, I'll begin with the special courts because this is something that the Minister of Defense, who is about to be confirmed, has always advocated for as part of his measures that he felt would curb and help us to deal with the menace. However, the conflict now becomes the fact that under the Terrorism Prevention and Prohibition Act, there is permission for some of these procedures to be done without media and without that transparency that we seek. It is that's where it gets a little bit complicated because of issues around national security and implications to national stability. Having said that, I think it's a step in the right direction. Now, to yesterday's proceedings, heated proceedings, and I say thank God, I never thought I'd hear myself say this, but thank God for the leadership of Senate President Akpabio and his intervention, because if not, we wouldn't have seen that sort of rigorous screening session. And our only hope is that although the ambassadorial nominees are being screened behind closed doors, we hope that there's the same rigor happening for them as well. So on that note, I say that was an important development. However, on another note, I say, my goodness me, it breaks my heart when the fear of a white man is what makes us spring into action. It says a lot. However, this is where we are. A Caucasian across the Atlantic has issued a warning, and we, like good blacks...
A Caucasian across the Atlantic?
Yes, and we, like good blacks, are now terrified.
The United States president, the most powerful man
Listen,
in the world.
There are several presidents who have stood up to past American presidents. However, there are genuine issues, and I think this is what we should focus on. Right, is that although we can't, I don't want to kill the messenger because I have a problem with the messenger, but it's okay. We're here now, and it's unfortunate that it wasn't the voice of the constituents, the voice of the Nigerians who are dealing with this menace day on, day out, that sprung our people into action. That's why I made reference to the gentleman across the Atlantic. However, having said that, and I'm a Trump fan, but I'm an African first. I'm an African first. I'm an African first.
Good, I like
Fantastic
that too.
Responses from the incoming Minister of Defense. What did he speak about? He spoke about withdrawing our military from checkpoints. He said we need these boots on the ground.
Absolutely.
They need to be in action, but we're wasting them because when they're doing the work that civil defense should be able to do at checkpoints. He spoke about budgets. He talked about the cost of the medium-range missiles. He said 150 million naira just for one, whether it strikes the target or not. This is the kind of thing we're talking about. And he said that in the past, there's been so much interference, there has been sabotage. And I love the fact that he's a man who has lived and tasted the experience. He knows where the shoe pinches. And I hope that he will get the necessary political will. Because, of course, we know that he sits in a cabinet of ministers. He doesn't make unilateral decisions over anything. However, his experience is going to be valuable. From an administrative side, the weight of expectation on his shoulders is high, but I hope he will prove to be up to the task. Because people are asking, what will he do differently now as minister that he didn't do as CDS? And we have to remind people that Minister of Defense is a much more influential post.
And speaking And speaking about that, he has to now deal with Bello Matawalle, whose topic we discussed earlier yesterday, who, I think is slightly, or not, I wouldn't say slightly, absolutely different from Musa, who say no negotiation with terrorists. Yesterday, we saw Metawale's 2020 video, I believe it was 2021 video, talking about the fact that, these not all bandits are criminals. I wonder how they would, work together at this point. But I wanted to touch on Akpabio really quickly. Just a quick sentence on Akpabio, because I know this is what our viewers want to hear. When he was talking about Trump is on our neck. Just a quick comment.
No, simply. He was just referring to the fact that...
Yes, we know what he was referring to. I just wanted your analysis on it.
No. My analysis is simply that he was reminding everyone of international pressure.
Correct.
And that the subject of appointment of a minister of defense is not something you can say bow and go.
Bow and go.
Yeah, and he got the support of almost everybody in the room.
Yeah.
And they went on to discuss. And I've condemned that Sani Musa, the senator from Niger East.
The same Niger State that we had.
He demonstrated very embarrassing simple-mindedness. And that these people we elect to the Senate, they should know that, it's serious work.
Serious business.
To bow and go where? No, that nonsense should never be recommended again.
Absolutely. From Niger State, the same Niger State that they have their girls kidnapped at this point, just so that we can move.
International pressure, and while it's very good because the world is a global village, but I'm hoping that we can return power to the office of the citizen, because the senators are representatives of the people, and the greatest fear for them to spring them to action should be what the citizens think or what they feel or the pressure put on them by the citizens of Nigeria. It shouldn't have to take an external personality to do that. And that's what I'm saying. Let us restore the power back to the office of the citizen, where Nigerian citizens can actually hold their senators, representatives to account. Right,
well said. And Vimba, you made mention of some of the things that General Musa was talking about, even like investing in, our security architecture and infrastructure as well. Meanwhile, a new video of a soldier breaking down the painfully low salaries of officers in the army is making the rounds on social media. In the video, the soldier states that soldiers currently make 104,000 naira once they join the military. Let's take a look.
Your salary is 104,000 if you enter. If you don't spend 5 years, they give you new rank. Your salary is 112,000 naira. If you spend 10 years, they give you another rank, which is corporal. You earn 115,000 naira. That is, if you spend 5 years, and if you spend 10 years, the difference of the salary is 3,000 naira, 112,000 and 115,000. If you spend 15 years in the service, 15 years, 15 years, your salary is 125,000 naira. Then if you spend 20 years in the service, your salary is 150,000 naira. This implementation starts this year. And maybe, let me say, approximately inside 150,000 naira, your wife will call you, your mother will call you. If you get children a day, you yourself, you won't eat, you won't buy another clothes. Your friend, one or two, you want, okay, let me give you small thing. You won't buy data, you won't save. Transportation, it's all that money. So, I just tell you so that you go know, make it not be as if nobody enlighten you before you join. Yeah? So just get unclear. That's the salary structure for now. You know?
This was quite shocking, Vimba Ayo. I mean, earlier this year, members of the Senate called for the federal government to increase soldiers' entry salaries, stating that soldiers in other African countries earn much more than their Nigerian counterparts. In Ghana, the entry-level pay is equivalent to 180,000 naira. In South Africa, 250,000 naira. And in Kenya, it's around 200,000 naira. Was it yesterday we took the story of President Bola Ahmed Tinubu, or, also encouraging people to donate to that legion as well. And he's also, vowed to try to make sure that the welfare of even veterans are taken care of. But we also need to see this sort of increment in their salaries as well.
Okay, guys, that was heavy. There is so much to unpack here. So let's break this down piece by piece, because what we just watched is essentially a shifting of the tectonic plates in US-Nigerian relationship. First off, Ojobe kicked it off with the news from Washington. The US State Department, backed by comments from Senator Marco Rubio, who is a heavy hitter in the US politics, is saying enough is enough regarding religious violence. They are explicitly calling it the targeted persecution of Christians. This isn't just a statement. They are implementing visa ban on individuals and the entities. They even specifically named the Mieti Alakatu Breeders Association. That is a direct hit. Then, we move to the studio debate, which was honestly the highlight for me. You had the US lawmakers suggesting that the Nigerian government needs to abolish Sharia law in the 12 northern states and disband the Hizbah police because they are fueling extremism. Now, this caused a friction in the studio. You heard Dr. Ruben Abati. He took the legalistic constitutional route. He argued that Sharia is embedded in the Nigerian Constitution, section 275 to 279, and that the president can't just wake up and ban it without causing chaos. He is looking at it from a federalist legal perspective, that Sharia is meant to be civil, not criminal, and only for Muslims. But then, Ayomairo Ese and Vimbai pushed back hard. The argument is the reality on the ground. They cited cases like Deborah Samuel and the destruction of alcohol in diverse states. Their point is, if Nigeria is a secular state, why do we have a religious law that keeps bleeding over and affecting non-Muslims? It was a clash between what the law says, that is Dr. Abati, and what is actually happening to the people, Ayo and Vimbai. Then we shifted to the Senate. This was fascinating. Usually, high-ranking officials get a bow and go treatment, but not General Christopher Musa. Senate President Akpabio explicitly stopped a motion to let them go easily, saying Donald Trump is on our neck. That was a slip, or maybe a confession that the Nigerian government is terrified over the incoming US administration stance on security. General Musa himself talked tough. No negotiation with terrorists. He wants boots on the ground, not at checkpoints. But then the video ended with that heartbreaking clip of a soldier, a man defending the country, explaining that after 20 years of service, he might only earn 150,000 naira, depending on rate. It really highlighted the disconnect between the generals in the Senate and the boys in the bush. Now, let's get critical about this. My take on this situation is twofold. It exposes our lack of internal accountability, and it highlights the hypocrisy in our security architecture. First, let us talk about Akpabio's comments. When the Senate president say we have to grill a service chief because Trump is on our neck, it breaks my heart. Why? Because it implies that the lives of Nigerians, the hundreds of school children kidnapped in Kaduna, the villagers slaughtered in Plateau, were not motivation enough for our Senate to do their jobs properly. Why does it take the fear of a white man in the White House to make our leaders act right? It shows that our leadership often respond more to external validation or sanction than to the cries of their own citizens. That is a failure of the social contract. Secondly, on the Sharia law, Dr. Abati is technically right about the constitution, but he is missing the sociological reality. You cannot have two justice systems in one country, where one is frequently weaponized against the other. When Hisbah police destroy the property of a sultana in Kano or Abuja because it violates Sharia, that is no longer a personal religious law. That is state-sanctioned oppression. The US lawmakers read this as a religious freedom violation are not wrong. If Nigeria wants to be part of the global community and receive aid, we cannot run a system where citizenship rights vary depending on which state you are in. And finally, the security contradiction. General Musa said no negotiation with terrorists. I agree with him. Paying ransom fuels the industry, but how do you fight a war when a soldier on the front line is making 50,000 to 100,000 naira a month, while the terrorists are financed by millions? The House of Rep is calling for the naming and shaming of terror financiers. We have heard this before. We need action. If a soldier is hungry, he is compromised. If a general is well fed but his troops are starving, the war will never end. The US pressure is good, but until we fix the welfare of the common soldier and the integrity of our judicial system, visa ban are just a slap on the wrist for elites who probably have dual citizenship anywhere. We need to fix Nigeria because Nigerians deserve it, not because Donald Trump is watching. That's it for today's deep dive on Oba's Trending Gist. What do you think? Should the Nigerian government actually try to abolish Sharia law, or would that cause a civil war? And does Akpabio's comment about Trump make you feel safer or more annoyed? Drop your comments below. Let's get conversation started. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more breakdown of the news that matters. I will see you in the next one.